Dr. Carson, you said throughout your life God has led you to your most important decisions. This truly is an important decision. Did God lead you to Donald Trump?
I prayed about it a lot, and I got a lot of indications, people calling me that I haven't talked to for a long time saying, I had this dream about you and Donald Trump.
All right, well, if God did lead Ben Carson to support Donald Trump, it is a heavenly event to Donald Trump. I'm not sure to Bob Vander, who's a big Cruz supporter, very active in the religious community, a kingmaker in states like Iowa et al. What did you think of that, about what he was saying, and that is Ben Carson, after all the rough language between the two, ending up supporting and putting his time into Donald Trump?
Well, I think I'm like a lot of people watching that, is we're just a little bit confused. Maybe it's hard to understand. That's not the Ben Carson we saw campaigning in Iowa. I was with a group of friends last night, some family members, when they heard that Carson was going to endorse Trump. There was first an audible gasp, and they're like, you got to be kidding me. And then they started questioning Dr. Carson. So I think there's just a lot of things that's hard to grasp and understand right now, Neil, why Dr. Carson would throw his support behind Donald Trump, someone who said Dr. Carson has a pathological disease that you cannot cure in the state of Iowa on a Fort Dodge stage.
Politics is politics. Not always happens. Look at the stuff between Chris Christie and Donald Trump.
Oh, but
wait a minute.
What do you make of that? But politics isn't politics. I mean, here you got Donald Trump saying, you know, we got to get rid of politics. You got Dr. Ben Carson, an outsider, saying we got to get rid of politics. And here you get an endorsement that just reeks of politics. And you're thinking, how can you get there from where you started?
Bob,
and that's the thing that I think is hard to understand.
How is that different from what earlier this campaign season was a veritable romance between your candidate, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump, and then it, you know, disintegrated into what it is today, a lot of name-calling back and forth. I mean, that happens in political races, right?
Yeah, but I think with Cruz and Trump, what you saw is you saw an early romance, just a friendship. I mean, Ted Cruz has been very open. He still likes Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He just doesn't like his policy, doesn't like his leadership, doesn't like his vision for America, doesn't believe he has the judgment or temperament to be president of the United States. And I think that was clear in the debate last night. I think you saw one person on that stage that has the grasp of the issues and the clarity and judgment and discernment to be president, and that's Ted Cruz.
But what if Ben Carson was looking, maybe with a little help from God, but with a little eye toward the polls and thinking, well, something tells me that as much as I personally like Ted Cruz, I think Trump has the better chance to be the nominee?
Well, that is something, if Dr. Ben Carson dug a little bit deeper in the Scripture warns us clearly, don't be drawn in by having a seat at the table. You don't want to do that. Where's that seat going to be? You want to go with somebody who actually stands on principle, who has a firm foundation. And that's why when you have Donald Trump, who is Planned Parenthood's Republican of the Year in 2015, the guy that's neutral on the state of Israel, the guy that is profane and vulgar on the campaign trail, and to say, that's who God is leading me to, I just have a hard time grasping that because it just doesn't add up.
Well, Proverbs also says, beware those who are down 20 points in the polls. They will never get to the promised land. No, I'm kidding. But to make a point that maybe this was a pragmatic choice in his part. We'll never know, Bob, but I do want to get a sense from you about this dust-up among Republicans. We have Marco Rubio saying, vote for me in Florida. If you feel like voting for Kasich, John Kasich in Ohio, have at it. I'm paraphrasing to make the point here, though, that there's a method to this math madness, and that is anything to stop Donald Trump. What do you make of it?
Well, I think Donald Trump was right last night, and I think Ted Cruz was right last night. There are two individuals on that stage that have a mathematical pathway to get to 1237, and that's Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. So Marco Rubio and John Kasich, I like both those guys, but quite frankly, they're playing games that want to go to a brokered convention. If you go to a brokered convention, I think all heck breaks loose, and if that happens, I think that benefits Hillary Clinton.
What if it's a brokered convention that goes to Ted Cruz? Couldn't you argue, and the Trump folks would argue, wait a minute, they're stealing this one from us?
As long as it's fair and square. And I think what you're going to see is if it does go to a brokered convention, you're going to see Donald Trump and Ted Cruz with virtually the same amount of delegates or within the margin of error.
Well, Donald Trump says he would have, at a minimum, Bob, a substantial lead and that he should get it by virtue of having a substantial lead. And his point was other nominees who eventually got to the convention site, many of them didn't have a majority when they got there, but they had such prohibitive leads that it was theirs for the asking. He seems to be fashioning himself in that position. So if that is the case and he has a prohibitive lead over Senator Cruz, would you buy that argument?
Well, first of all, we have to see what the lead is. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to have Cruz going to be able to make a really good argument at the brokered convention, so would Trump. But right now it's about getting to 1237. And if this is a two-man race, every poll that's worth its salt shows that Ted Cruz beats Donald Trump by 15 to 20 percentage points.
So was Marco Rubio just undoing him with this, not quasi-suggestion, outright endorsement of voting for the alternative candidate who leads in Florida, that is Marco Rubio, and in Ohio, that is John Kasich?
Well, you're exactly right. And Neil, as you know, this isn't my first rodeo of watching division happen so that we nominate somebody that we really don't want to nominate. And I think you're seeing that here with Kasich, Rubio, and Cruz. Matter of fact, if Cruz was in the same position that Rubio is in today, I'd be telling Senator Ted Cruz, you need to yield your campaign, fold your campaign, get behind Rubio, the guy that can take on Trump and beat Trump. I think that would be real leadership by Rubio and by Kasich. Put the cause of the country above themselves. Let's get a nominee that can win in general, that can defeat Hillary Clinton.
We're a long way from done, right? So why would you be advising something like that when even the front-running candidate right now has less than a third of the delegates he needs?
But when you take a look at it, Neil, what Donald Trump said last night and what Ted Cruz reiterated last night, there's two of them that have a mathematical pathway to 1237. Marco Rubio does not have a pathway. John Kasich does not have a pathway. So if you're going to, I mean, Donald Trump's uniting the Republican Party, but it's the Republican Party against him.
Would you back Donald Trump if he were the nominee?
Well, right now I'm backing Ted Cruz to be the nominee.
But if he were, would you back him?
He would have a long way to go to get my endorsement. I'm not in the hashtag never Trump camp.
Okay.
But boy, he has got some big-time gaps in order to get my endorsement, and people like my endorsement.
Do you think he personally insulted you, came after you? He did that with a number of other prominent Republican players, and they're not forgetting all of that stuff. How much does that stuff come into play when it's, for want of a better term, establishment or big party monkey-de-mucks like yourself who just are not warming up to Donald Trump?
Well, for me, that's water under the bridge. I was right. He was wrong. I won that battle. I'm happy to have that battle any day of the week with Donald Trump. The fact of the matter is, I'm more concerned about the country and the vision and the judgment and the temperament that he brings for this country. Anybody that's neutral on the nation of Israel, I think we have to question, do you really want to be president of the United States? Anybody that's endorsed by Planned Parenthood as a Republican of the Year in 2015, that goes against all of our values and all of our sentiments.
If you had a choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, who would it be?
Ted Cruz.
All right. I can't get you to budge, but I'll try. All right. It's always good having you, Bob. Thank you very, very much, Bob. Vander Plaats.
All right. God bless.